Today we're going to be looking at the Queen's Wayward attack, as the title shows, of this YouTube video. So Queen's Wayward attack begins with a white mate. Black can do this, but it's a lot harder because white gets the first move. So we begin with e4 and then an e5. This is very common. You see this a lot. Sometimes you will see a c5, which kind of works, or you might see d5 Scandinavian. However, most of the time you'll see e5. If they play e5, we will move our queen to h5, which, as black, you might see a lot from white these days, because this is getting quite popular. So there are many things black can do wrong if they don't know about the Queen's Wayward attack. So one thing they might do wrong is if they play g6. If you are white, you are winning. Well, not exactly winning, but close. You might win very easily. You just take this pawn, which is now a fork between the rook, king, and the rook, which we get a rook in the third move, which is just wow. Rooks are very powerful. So the king can't move. But this is not mate. He can block with these three pieces: the bishop, the knight, and the queen. Most of the time you will see bishop blocking. Occasionally you'll see queen blocking. And I've rarely, only two times I've ever seen the knight block. So if the bishop blocks, we take the rook, of course, because then this is no point. And then you are just up material, develop your other pieces, like the knights and the bishops, and you have a really good position in this place. If they do not see that the knight's in danger, then you could even take the knight, which is then a check again. And then the forced move is then going to be bishop blocking. So in this case, the Queen's Wayward attack is good, really good. However, what if they don't fall for g6? Instead, they might play, say, knight to c6, which is now protecting this pawn. If they play this, which is the most common, you will do bishop c4. Why is this good? Because it's threatening mate. It's super hard to see, but that is a mate. And it's so early that your opponent might not even be thinking of the endgame. However, this is the endgame. So what would black do next? Black might play knight to f6, threatening our queen and our pawn. However, this does not stop us from mate because it does not block the diagonal. So we just take, and that's a mate. The king can't move here or stay because it's checked. And that is a mate. The queen is also protected by the bishop if you thought that the king could just take the queen. What if they don't play knight to f6? Say they attack our queen with g6, which is now actually blocking our diagonal, because you can't go through pieces with the queen. We'll just move back, and now on the straight of the f file, we are threatening mate again. So if they just play something like d6 to get their bishop into the game and start a mini pawn chain, which in the Sicilian is a good move, we'll just mate them. Because now this is open, yes, but it's also guarded by the queen. The same deal. There's another thing that happens. If they do g6 from the last variation, we could for the king and rook. However, this has no value because knight takes and then the bishop is now being threatened. So taking the pawn here is just not a good idea, being guarded by the knight. So let's move on to the next variation. Another thing they will do occasionally is if they know the attack, they will bring their knight to protect this square. What do we do now? We play d3, which is a very good move, eyeing down a really good diagonal, attacking the rook, the knight, which is protecting the square we're about to mate on, and forcing a mini pawn chain. Usually you'll see g6 after this, attacking the queen, or just move back, threatening mate again. Then they will just maybe do this, perhaps, making a good bishop diagonal, a long one too. We'll just take the knight. And the first time I played this, my opponent took my bishop, and then I just mated. So taking the bishop, if you're black, is not a good idea. What you should do is queen to e7, which is very, very annoying to white. Because if we go, queen takes. And then of course bishop takes, but then the king gets the bishop, and then the king, and then what black is just up material now. And then it's not very good for white. So from here, if they don't take, then really you'll just have to improvise and just keep your queen and bishop eyeing down on the f7 square. So right the moment you get the chance, you just mate. If you have to give up if you have to move your queen away, like it's threatened, then yes, you must move away somewhere that is safe. However, once the threat is gone, move back. Another thing you'll see in this position is black's pawn just moving here. If this happens, you'll have to get around them somehow, like moving this up, going here. It's really long. However, if they don't see it, then it's good. However, this is kind of easy to see because there's so many moves. So let's move back to the next variation. Maybe they will play, so they do this, right? And then we go here. Another thing they will do is typically move here or move here. If these two moves happen, then you just have to get the queen out yourself. There are many ways to get the queen out, especially because the queen is much in value. The queen is so much in value that if you just threaten it, it will move. So say here, start up the mini pawn chain, and then we could just do this later on. Now the queen has to move away, and then that's a mate. It's actually not mate yet, I just realized, because the king can move here. And you might think this is mate. However, the queen can take queen. So you'll have to get the queen out of this spot as well, which will be quite easy to do, just threading it. Like doing this or then this. The queen will maybe say move somewhere that is safe, and then you can just take the bishop as a mate. So the queen's wayward attack is a tricky opening, especially to remember all of these different variations. However, if you just follow them and think what is the best move, you will eventually win if you just think what's the best move in this position, what's the best move in this position. Like in this position, for perhaps black does this. It is quite easy to see. Well, actually not very easy, but as you know, I've already told you that f7 is a very weak square that is easy to target, especially because the king is right next to it. And that's why the queen's wayward attack, or scholar's mate, which is what the mate is called if this happens, is a good move or a good mate to me. Next, let's look at what this feels like for black. So let's go all the way back. In black's perspective, there are things that help actually. So e4, e5, that's the beginning. You see this. You will play knight to f6. You might see takes, or sometimes you will see this, which I'll go over. If they take, we block with bishop. Why is this good? Well, because they will now get their bishop developed, and then we can castle, which is now actually destroying the queen's wayward attack. Because if the queen captured the f7, there's a rook, and then we can just move here. There's a queen protecting our rook, and then we have a solid defense here. We can get our knights into action, threatening, and then black is just really good in this. Now what happens if we do knight f6 and then the bishop comes, the threatened mate? What we will do here is we will actually do g6. They will take the pawn, causing check. We'll just block. Then they might do something else, and then we castle. But then there is a pawn that is out of order, which the queen, which can move diagonally, can take advantage of that. However, there are many pieces around, and it's not very hard. You could just protect this square with simple moves, moving the knight out, or actually not moving it there, that's not good. Moving the knight out, threatening the queen, then you could just move here, protecting that square, making d4 or d3 impossible because we just take the bishop. And then this is just good for black. So white and black can do things wrong in this position. So the queen's wayward attack is an equal game. It's not good for white, or it's not very good for black. However, sometimes it's mate for one. There's always a mate for one person. And that is the queen's wayward attack. Hope you enjoyed. Leave a like.